Ever feel like, your curiosity about life and death runs a little deeper than most? You're not alone.
Yeah.
We're diving into the world of thanatology research today,
Mm.
a field that tackles those big questions head on.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, the RoleCatcher resources we dug into,
Yeah.
full of surprises,
Yeah.
way more to thanatology than I ever imagined.
It's a field that it really challenges your assumptions, that's for sure.
Yeah.
People hear death and dying and think it's all doom and gloom.
Right.
But thanatology is about understanding the whole human experience from
Right.
every angle. Psychological, sociological, even anthropological.
Wow.
It's about life, too, just as much as death.
Okay, so it's not just about working in labs surrounded by textbooks.
Yeah.
What's a day in the life of a thanatology researcher actually look like?
Think way outside the lab. You could be in a hospital, working with patients and families.
Yeah.
At a university, digging into cultural attitudes towards death, or even developing new therapies for those facing the end of life.
It's giving me chills just thinking about it, to be honest. What are some of the most surprising things thanatology researchers are working on right now?
One area that's really fascinating is the use of technology, like virtual reality,
Okay.
for grief therapy.
Interesting.
Imagine helping a grieving family member process their loss by virtually revisiting cherished memories.
Oh, wow.
It's groundbreaking stuff.
That's not what I pictured at all, but it makes so much sense. Now, the RoleCatcher guides mention that 73% of a thanatologist's job involves mathematics. 73%. You're telling me that to understand death, I need to be a math whiz?
It's more about analytical skills than straight-up calculus.
Yep.
Thanatologists are dealing with huge amounts of data from patient interviews to cultural studies, and they need those sharp analytical skills to make sense of it all, to draw meaningful conclusions.
So it's this unique blend of analytical thinking and deep empathy that makes this field so intriguing, maybe even a little intimidating.
Yeah.
For those of you listening who might be considering this path, what are some of the first steps you could take to dip your toes into the world of thanatology?
Volunteering or interning at a hospice, grief counseling center, or even a funeral home can provide invaluable firsthand experience. It's about connecting with people on a very human level,
Yeah.
understanding their experiences and seeing how these concepts play out in real-life situations.
Speaking of real-life situations, the RoleCatcher guide also touched on career progression within thanatology. Let's say I'm just starting out. What's a real-world example of a project I might be working on? And how does that change as I become more experienced?
As an entry-level researcher, you might find yourself assisting with data collection.
Okay.
For a study on the effectiveness of different grief therapies, maybe you're conducting interviews, analyzing transcripts, or even helping to develop survey questions.
It's fascinating how much variety there is in the day-to-day work. You're not just stuck behind a desk all day.
Definitely not. As you progress to a junior researcher role, you might take on more responsibility for designing and conducting your own research projects.
Okay.
Perhaps focusing on a specific area, like the impact of cultural beliefs on end-of-life decision-making.
So you're gradually moving from assisting others to leading your own investigations, which is something that RoleCatcher highlighted in their career path breakdowns. They even had example profiles of thanatologists at different stages, which I found incredibly helpful.
Yeah, it's like having a roadmap for your career. And as you reach the senior level, you might find yourself leading larger research projects, securing funding, publishing your findings in academic journals,
Wow.
and even mentoring the next generation of thanatologists.
Mentoring, publishing. That sounds like you've really made a mark in the field.
Yeah.
What are some other accomplishments that senior thanatology researchers are known for?
Well, think about it. These are the folks who are often called upon to provide expert testimony on death-related issues, to consult on public policy matters, or even to help shape the future of end-of-life care. It's high-impact work.
Okay, so let's say I'm ready to dive headfirst into the world of thanatology research. RoleCatcher is supposed to be amazing for job hunting, but I feel like that can be a black hole. What are some specific ways it can give me an edge in my job search?
Think of RoleCatcher as your secret weapon.
Okay.
First off, its CV and cover letter builder helps you tailor your applications to each specific job description.
Okay.
That means highlighting the skills and experience that employers are actually looking for, not just sending out a generic document.
Okay, so it's like having a professional resume writer on call 247. But what about those nerve-wracking interviews? That's where I always freeze up.
Don't worry, RoleCatcher has you covered there too.
Okay.
Its AI-powered interview practice platform is a game changer.
All right, break it down for me. How can AI help me nail those tough interview questions?
It's pretty amazing, actually. Imagine having access to a massive library of interview questions, specifically tailored to thanatology research.
So no more being caught off guard by a curveball question about, say, the ethical implications of near-death experiences.
Exactly. But it gets even better. You can actually record your responses to these practice questions, and the AI will analyze them and give you personalized feedback.
No way. It's like having a personal interview coach, but without the awkward small talk.
Exactly.
So it's about building confidence and getting comfortable talking about these complex topics. But I imagine that even with all the preparation in the world, dealing with death and dying on a daily basis has to take an emotional toll. How do the ontologists handle the emotional weight of their work?
You've hit on a crucial aspect of this field, the human side of thanatology research.
Yeah.
It's not just about collecting data, it's about recognizing the very real human impact of that data.
Right.
And sometimes that data can be emotionally charged, especially when dealing with topics like grief, loss, and end-of-life decisions. It's true. It takes a certain kind of person to navigate these waters.
Yeah.
Someone who is both scientifically minded and deeply empathetic.
Someone who can approach sensitive topics with compassion and respect. That delicate balance must be crucial for thanatology researchers.
Absolutely. And it's something they learn to cultivate throughout their careers, drawing on their experiences, their training, and their own humanity.
Because ultimately, it's all about the human experience, isn't it?
Yeah.
And while thanatology focuses on death and dying, you're right, it really does shed light on the preciousness of life itself.
Precisely. By understanding death, we gain a deeper appreciation for life. It's like holding a mirror up to our own mortality, forcing us to confront the things that truly matter.
And that's a powerful thing, to be honest. I remember reading a story in one of the RoleCatcher articles about a thanatologist who worked with terminally ill children. Even though it was heartbreaking work, she said it taught her more about living than anything else ever had.
It's a common thread you hear from people in this field. Being so close to death, to the fragility of life, it can be profoundly life-altering. It makes you want to squeeze every ounce of joy out of each day.
Makes you want to call your loved ones and tell them how much they mean to you, right?
Exactly. And that brings us to a fascinating point. Thanatology research doesn't just impact the researchers themselves, it ripples out into the wider world. The insights gained from this field can help us all live more fully, more intentionally.
Okay, I'm hooked. Give me an example. How has thanatology research changed the way we approach end-of-life care?
Think about the hospice movement. It was born out of thanatology research, the understanding that death is a natural part of life and that people deserve dignity and comfort in their final days.
You're right, that's huge. It's completely shifted our cultural perspective on death and dying.
Exactly. And it's just one example of how thanatology research is making a real difference in the world.
So for our listeners out there, especially those of you feeling drawn to this field, what would you say is the most important thing to remember as you embark on this journey of exploring thanatology?
Be prepared for a wild ride. It's an emotionally challenging field, no doubt, but it's also incredibly rewarding.
Rewarding in what way? What are some of the intangible benefits of working in this field, besides the obvious one of helping others?
It's a field that attracts people who are deeply curious about the human experience, who aren't afraid to ask the big questions. And in the process of seeking answers, they often stumble upon profound truths about life, death, and everything in between.
It's like you're constantly pushing the boundaries of knowledge and understanding, both your own and humanity's as a whole. And that can be incredibly fulfilling.
Speaking of fulfilling, let's talk about the practical side of things for a minute. RoleCatcher offers all these amazing tools and resources, but how can aspiring thanatologists use them strategically to stand out from the crowd?
It's about going beyond just reading the career guides, though.
Yeah.
Those are incredibly valuable in themselves. It's about using the AI-powered tools to your advantage.
Give us an example. Let's say I'm getting ready for a job interview at a hospice. How can RoleCatcher help me knock it out of the park? Remember that interview practice platform we talked about? Use it. Practice answering common interview questions, but don't stop there.
So don't just stick to the basics. Get creative with it.
Exactly. Think about the specific challenges and rewards of working in hospice care. Then use RoleCatcher to practice answering questions about how you would handle those situations.
That's brilliant. It's about showing them you've done your homework, that you understand the nuances of this work.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of storytelling in your interview. RoleCatcher's database of thanatology-related news and research can provide you with some powerful anecdotes to weave into your answers.
It's about bringing your passion for this field to life, showing them you're not just here for a job, you're here for a calling. And for our listeners who are still on the fence, who are maybe feeling a little intimidated by the emotional weight of this field, what would you say to encourage them to take that next step?
It's okay to be intimidated. It's a big field with big questions. But remember, you don't have to have all the answers to start. Just bring your curiosity, your empathy, and your willingness to learn.
Because at the end of the day, the thanatology isn't about memorizing textbooks or crunching numbers.
Yeah.
It's about connecting with people on a deeply human level.
It's about recognizing that even in death, there's so much we can learn about living.
And maybe even finding a new appreciation for the preciousness of each moment we have.
Beautifully said. And that's what I find so inspiring about thanatology. It's not about dwelling on death. It's about embracing life more fully.
Yeah. It's like that old saying, to live a good life, you have to think about death a little.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
about recognizing our own mortality, not in a morbid way, but in a way that empowers us to live more authentically and more intentionally.
So for our listeners out there who are feeling that call to explore the world of thanatology, what's the one piece of advice you'd give them?
Don't be afraid to ask the hard questions.
Mm.
Thanatology is a field for the intellectually curious. For those who want to delve into the mysteries of life and death, embrace that curiosity, and don't be afraid to challenge your own assumptions along the way.
It's about more than just finding a career. It's about embarking on a journey of self-discovery.
Absolutely. And remember, resources like RoleCatcher can be invaluable guides on that journey. Use those tools, connect with others in the field, and never stop learning.
Because the more we understand about death, the more we understand about life itself. This has been an incredible deep dive, and we can't wait to see what you uncover as you explore the world of thanatology research.